Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. C.L. is not here today. He's on the road out of town, but filling in for him is State Representative Mike Johnson, and I am always glad to fill in for the big man, although they're giant shoes to fill. Impossible to do, really, but glad to be here, broadcasting from Shreveport and all over the Arklatex and northwest Louisiana, the surrounding region, surrounding states, and now even in other parts of the nation. And, of course, online you can listen everywhere. It's an honor to be here, and, boy, what a momentous time to be in the big chair here. There's a lot going on around the country and here in our state. I'm currently a candidate for the U.S. Congress, as some know, and we have the big runoff election on Saturday. I won't be talking about that for the show. I just wanted to state the obvious at the outset because everybody would ask me why I didn't. So, look, whoever you vote for, you need to go out and get to the polls on Saturday, December 10th. We have a couple of races and seats yet to fill in the Congress, our U.S. Senate seat from Louisiana and two congressional seats, the 4th District, which is ours, and the 3rd District south of us. And they really, really matter. I mean, I know a lot of people have election fatigue and all that, and early voter turnout was pretty low statewide early on for last week. So we're counting on a big turnout on Saturday, and go out and do your civic duty. This is a blessing and a privilege that we have to cast that vote, so don't miss out on that on Saturday. We need to get voter turnout up. I was doing an interview a little while ago with the Times-Picayune about our race, and one of the things that the reporter asked me, the Times-Picayune reporter, was about priorities in the Congress and the mood in Washington right now. And it really is electric. I mean, I'm giving you a first-hand account from what I know. I mean, I've been talking to leaders in Congress over the last, since November 8th. Starting the evening of November 8th, the first call I got was from Steve Scalise, our majority whip. He's our congressman from South Louisiana and is in leadership, of course, on the Hill. And he was just, I've used the word giddy. He was giddy with excitement about the opportunity that we now have to really make some real reforms to the country and get America back on the right track. Shall I say, to make America great again. And I really feel like my personal opinion is that God's given us another chance, that we get another chance to turn this thing around, and we're looking forward to doing that. Right now, I sort of feel like one of those kids who's running down the sideline, adrenaline pumping, pacing back and forth, chomping at the bit. Put me in, coach. I hope to have an opportunity to be a part of that because, look, the people in Washington and those who have been there, some of them for generations, describe the mood there right now to be just electric. There's such a sense of excitement and enthusiasm about what we're going to be able to do. And, I think President-elect Trump is serious about many of the claims he's made.
Well, 8 years ago, when John Fleming won this congressional seat, he was the doctor.
Yep.
We had Dr. Bill Cassidy going 8 years ago with Obama. And for 8 years, they have had a struggle. And now that we've got the Congress, we've got the representatives, senators, and now the presidency, that we're expecting to really be able to apply the things that we've only talked about. Steve Scalise, it's like being a Republican in exile all these years.
It has been for the last 8 years under the Obama administration. And as Steve Scalise said, we were expecting to have to play defense for the next 4 years. But with the outcome of the presidential election and the outcome in the other elections around the country, suddenly it's a paradigm shift. Now we get to play offense again. And what we mean by that is to really advance some core conservative principles and restore some of the things that we've sort of lost sight of in the last 8 years. By that I mean returning to free market principles, returning to fiscal conservatism and really stability in our nation's budgeting, reducing regulations and taxation and all the things that had been promised on the campaign trail. We actually get an opportunity to do now. National security is a big issue to people, and securing the border and all the rest. And so, look, Mike Pence, the vice president-elect, who endorsed me today, by the way, is in the Shreveport Times, but he
was here earlier.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
We were just chatting about you.
Yes.
Sorry you missed him.
Yeah, sorry. He said he met with the Republican delegation about 2 weeks ago, and he said, folks, the president-elect is serious about these reforms, and we're looking to move the ball. and we need leaders to help us move the ball. And he has a lot of willing
And we
accomplices.
want to send you to D.C. to be one of those leaders. Because, Mike, you're an excellent communicator. And I find all the time that when people hear we're cutting Obamacare, they don't know what that means. It doesn't mean that we want poor people to go without health care. That's not what this is about. And we're going to talk to Senator Cassidy about that very thing. He's a doctor. Dr. Fleming, was there 8 years as a doctor. There's so many doctors that are in D.C. Tom Price, he was a congressman and a doctor who have worked for years on alternatives on health care.
That's right, and I'm glad you teased that because I was going to say that before we go to break. Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle.
Pay me a little extra
on
there,
the ball. We have an all-star lineup of guests tonight. I'm really excited about the program. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy is going to be here, soon to be our senior senator, and he's going to talk about that and the 21st Century Cures Act, which is a big momentum on mental health and those issues. And we secured, I think we're very close to securing billions in flood relief for the state of Louisiana. That's a big development today, so he's going to tell us about it. And then later in the program, you've got to hang around because my dear friend Ross Barrett is going to come in. He's known to many people around the area. One of the smartest guys I know, dearest friends. He's into venture capitalism and all that, but he's the outgoing president of the Committee of 100, involved in all sorts of things in the community. And we're going to talk about some of those conservative economic principles and what we mean by these big, overarching concepts and what that means to the average folks. And then, really excited, in the 6:30 block, is somewhere in there, we're going to have Jeremy Alford come on, one of our dear friends. He's the editor of LA Politics. Today, they launched their new book, Long Shot. He and Tyler Bridges have co-authored this new book, highly anticipated, on the great governor's race that we had last year between David Vitter and John Bel Edwards.
The great governor's race?
The infamous, let me say that.
Infamous.
I didn't like the outcome at all,
Right.
but that's actually a chapter in the book, my view on that. But we'll talk about that later. And then many other things. Laura Seaball is going to be with us by Christmas in Roseland, and just lots of stuff. The program is packed today, so stay with us, and we'll be getting to that. We're going to break here in just a moment, but I want to say to those who are praying today for my father, Patrick Johnson, I appreciate that. We got sentiments from all over the community. He's been struggling with cancer. He's listening right now. Dad, love you. Be back there shortly. And stick around for the C.L. Bryant Show. We're going to have a good time tonight. Thanks a lot.
We don't have no plastic LA friends, ain't on the edge of no popular trend, ain't never seen the inside of that magazine GQ.
And welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Johnson, Representative Mike Johnson, filling in for CL, who is on the road doing important things as he always is. And speaking of important things, we have a very important guest on the line, and I'm delighted to have him. He's our soon-to-be senior U.S. Senator, our good friend Dr. Bill Cassidy. Senator, thanks for taking a moment to be with us. This is a big day, and we're really grateful to have your time.
Hey, Mike, thank you. Of course, when you started your intro, I was thinking, that's CL. I thought it was supposed to be Mike.
Well, my voice is not as deep as his, but I try to do that. I try to fill in and sound like CL as much as I can. That's impossible. Hey, listen, big day on the Hill. I was just looking at the latest announcement. More than $1.8 billion in flood relief aid has been secured for Louisiana. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you were instrumental in making all that happen today.
Yeah, obviously, the floods in North Louisiana in the spring and in South Louisiana in the summer have left a trail of devastation. We're able to secure funds, helping families rebuild. There's also money for all the road damage that was in both parts of the state. There's going to be money to repair those roads, and for Army Corps of Engineer projects which have been messed up by the flooding, there's money to repair those. And so between it all, we think that it doesn't put people's lives entirely back together, but it gives our communities a head start on getting right once more.
Thank you so much for your work. I know you spoke on the Senate floor today about the importance of this relief to Louisiana, and it really can't be overstated. I mean, we've just suffered a series of devastating events, flooding throughout the state, really, and people have been just waiting on the edge of their seats for this. And we're so grateful. I mean, it comes with as a great sigh of relief for many that this has happened, and I guess it builds upon. It's in addition to the $438 million down payment that was secured back in September, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. My daughter was crossing the street, so I'm sorry to yell right there.
Oh, that's right.
No, the package put together, can make a difference. And again, it won't make people entirely whole, Mike, but I can tell you, when someone who didn't have flood insurance now is going to have some aid getting back into their home, or someone who relied upon a road to take their goods to market, now can say, oh, listen, that road's going to be repaired. We feel like we're making a start. And I just thank our federal taxpayers. And that's you, and that's me, and that's people that live in Iowa and Michigan and other countries, other states. And they just made a commitment to help their fellow American in need. I'm very thankful.
We are thankful, and that's a good point, because some have said, well, when you guys are arguing for disaster relief, you're supposed to be, I thought you were a conservative, I thought you were a small government conservative and all that. What's the rationale for it? And as I often say, Senator, I say, there are some things that only the federal government can do. I mean, there's some disasters, the scope of which are so great that is truly beyond the scope of what the locals can handle on their own, and that's why it's a stopgap measure that we have the federal government to come in and do disaster relief in these times of true and serious emergency for states and local communities. I mean, that's the purpose of the whole thing. So when we're arguing for and negotiating for those disaster relief dollars, I mean, I think most would agree that's a good and maybe a best use of federal funding, at least among the best, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I totally with you on that. As you put it, there are some things too big for a single state and certainly for a community to handle. You can look at levees breaking during Hurricane Katrina that probably have the best example. But and I'll tell you, the most heartwarming thing about seeing disaster response is how fellow Americans respond independently of the government. Operation Barbecue came down and just served. These are all kind of national champion barbecue competitors, and they bring their best barbecue from around the nation, and they set up shop and then just start making meals. And people donate to them, and they keep strict accountability, but they do this regularly. One guy that came, he said, listen, when I was in Tuscaloosa and my home was destroyed by a tornado, Operation Barbecue came and helped me feed my family as we sorted through debris. So since then, he's volunteered with Operation Barbecue wherever they go. In this case, it turned out to be Louisiana. Our tax dollars supported Tuscaloosa rebuilding. and supported San Francisco and Manhattan after the 9/11 attack, San Francisco after the earthquake. So I think it's just something we do as Americans, which is help each other in the midst of terrible disasters.
That's exactly right. I'm talking to U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy. He's generous to give us a moment this evening on a busy day in Washington and here in Louisiana as well. Senator, I'm going to ask you if you can to stay on with us one more segment. We're going to break here in just a minute, but before the break, I wanted to ask you, we got about 2 minutes. Can you just give us a sense? You're there on the ground. You're in Washington. There's such a sense of excitement in the country right now after the election results. You know, Louisiana went overwhelmingly for President Trump, President-elect Trump. And what's the sense there? Just give us in your words how it feels in Washington right now, the sense of excitement.
I laugh. I tell people half of Washington is in the stages of working through grief.
Yes.
And they're stuck in anger or denial. and the other half of us have been pinching ourselves to make sure that it's true. For those of us who are pinching ourselves in delight, we're saying families have been hurting for the last 8 years. And a lot of stuff that could have been done, that could have created better jobs for these families, have been left on the table. Whether it was through regulations that punish fossil fuel, or other regulations that basically encourage companies to locate their manufacturing into China. It's just been tough for working families. I'm excited because I think Trump is truly committed to creating better jobs for those working families. I'm excited because he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare, which I think we can do a lot better than Obamacare.
Yes, indeed.
So there is, on our side, a lot of excitement because we see the last 8 years is not going well for most families, and here's a guy that believes that and wants to make it better.
I think that's right, and I think that we're going to have a real opportunity to do that, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I think the first 100 days of the Trump administration are going to be a very exciting time for America. Senator, if you could stay with us for the next segment, I really want to ask you a couple of things about the 21st Century Cures Act, Obamacare, and about your town hall that you have coming up tomorrow night. Can you stick with us one more segment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. This is Mike Johnson filling in on the C.L. Bryant Show. We'll be back with you in just a moment. And welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Representative Mike Johnson filling in for CL, who is on the road this evening. And we're broadcast all over the Arklatex, all over the world, really, if you go online. And I just wanted to give a shout-out real quick to one of our affiliates in Wilmington, North Carolina, WLTT. Thanks for listening. But we're broadcasting from Shreveport tonight, and we had on in the first segment U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, and he's with us for one more block because I wanted to ask him to talk with us just a little bit about a big issue that's been developing in Washington and something that he's taken the lead on. And we call it the 21st Century Cures Act. It's received bipartisan support, largely because of the leadership of Senator Cassidy. And Dr. Cassidy, could you just tell us a little bit about that, what that's about, and what it's going to mean for the country?
Yeah, there's several parts to it, Mike. It'll officially pass tomorrow, but we know we have the votes because we had a test vote last night. Two parts to it. One, we're going to put more money to the NIH and others to find a cure for cancer. This is number one. Number two, put more money towards the NIH to deal with things like Alzheimer's, dementia, multiple, all the degenerative neurologic diseases, ALS, for example. That will all be part of that. So if you've got a parent or a grandparent with Alzheimer's dementia, you've seen how their life just slowly goes down. At the end, totally dependent upon family or others. And you don't want to end up that way. This is good research for you because it would make it so that you and I hopefully will not end up that way. Also, for those that have cancer, wouldn't that be great if we can cure some cancers now, put the research in that will allow us to cure them all?
Doc, it hits close to home to me today in particular. You don't know this because we haven't spoken, but I spent most of the day with my father. My own dad is in end stages of colon cancer, and he had a rough day today. And, we were talking about this very thing that, we've come so far with medical advancement, but we still haven't found that great cure. But what a game changer that would be for everybody, for all Americans. I mean, everybody around the world, really.
Yes. Totally, Mike. And just think of our loved ones we've lost.
Right.
We all have from cancer. So we've established an initiative that will go to eliminate cancer. And again, we've made great progress. This is a shot in the arm to go even further. Another big part of it is the mental health bill, Reform Bill of 2016, which I wrote with Senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy.
Yes.
And in the mental health bill of 2016, Mike, each person listening knows somebody with serious mental illness. Family member, friend, someone you went to high school with. True of my family, true of yours probably. It's just out there. And we're taking all the money the federal government spends, some of it just totally wasted, and we reshape that same money in a way which holds the federal government more accountable, makes sure the money is spent more wisely, so that the resources some young person needs when she has her first psychotic episode, those resources surround her, restore her to wholeness, so that instead of a life that ends up with a broken family, kids in foster home, and her homeless, instead she returns again to health, and 50 years later she looks back upon that event as a distant memory, but not as a life-defining event. That is our goal.
Senator, that is a perfect example of the way government should work. I mean, that's a good government reform because not only are you doing what's best by those who suffer from these diseases, and a lot of it is prevention, of course, and you're saving money on the front end, you're spending it more wisely as a better steward of these precious taxpayer dollars, but it's also going to save us a lot of money on the back end as well, right? Because ultimately that saves cost on things like incarceration and other things.
If you speak to Sheriff Steve Prater or Julian Whittington, they will tell you that they are the largest mental health providers in their parish.
They do say that. I've heard them say it. You're right.
So if you go to a jail in a prison and you're seeing people who are mentally ill who, if they had been on their appropriate medications, would not have committed a crime. Instead, they're incarcerated. The taxpayers paying anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 a year to keep them incarcerated. But they could have been a gainfully employed person paying taxes, not soaking them up. Then you can understand the ramifications of that. We need to. If someone's mentally ill, obviously we'd rather treat them in an outpatient clinic of a psychiatrist, not in an inpatient cell where they're doing 5 to 10 years for something they did when they were not in their right mind.
Well, listen, I know I speak on behalf of all your constituents and really everyone when I say thank you for your leadership on that mental health bill, because it is an issue that has not gotten enough attention until now, and I think that it just has tremendous potential for everyone involved and for the taxpayers' benefit as well. I mean, just great work on that, so congratulations and thanks for it. We got about 2 minutes. I wanted to ask you just quick overview, your quick assessment on the outlook on Obamacare. I mean, we've all heard about replacing and repealing it and replacing it. There's lots of ideas on the table, I know, but are we really going to be able to fix this? I think we are. Do you agree with that?
I think we are too. Let me just say that there's kind of a debate up here right now in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should repeal it and put in the legislation to replace it at the same time.
Right.
To let the American people know that we are firmly committed to replacing it. The House Freedom Caucus just came out with that same sort of statement. We need to replace right away, otherwise people will not believe it. Now, some folks are saying, no, it's going to take us 3 to 4 years to actually come up with a plan. If it takes you 3 to 4 years to come up with a plan, it's probably not going to happen. So I'm the kind of guy that says let's do it right off the bat, fulfill our promise to the American people, get it done and then move on, not linger over it for 2 to 3 years fighting about it. Let's get it going.
I agree completely, and I think we're going to have a majority who's going to agree with us on that. We're going to fight tooth and nail. I will. I know you will. If I'm blessed enough to go and serve with you. Listen, you're having a Facebook town hall tomorrow night. So real quickly, that's tomorrow night, Wednesday, December 7th at 5:30 p.m. Central. Everybody just goes to your Facebook page and they can participate. Is that right?
Absolutely. By the way, let me
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
And this is Representative Mike Johnson filling in for C.L. Bryant, who is on the road this evening. And I had U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy on in the last two segments, and we had to go right for the top of the hour. I didn't realize it was a hard break, and we cut him off at the end, but he was promoting. He's having a Facebook town hall. I wanted you to know about that. If you go to his Facebook page, U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, you can find it easily. Town hall opportunity tomorrow evening at 5:30 Central. Wanted you to know about that on his behalf. With me now in studio is a dear friend of mine, somebody that I've known. We go back since, to high school. He's a Shreveport native, Ross Barrett. Many of the folks listening to our voices tonight know Ross. He's been around on lots of things. We went to law school together, among other things, but he's a managing partner of BVM Capital and co-founder of VC Experts. He's the outgoing president of the Committee of 100, which is one of the premier leadership organizations in our region, and he previously worked on Capitol Hill way back when we were younger. He was a legislative aide for U.S. Senator J. Bennett Johnston. Many people remember that. But Ross, thanks for coming in. Lots I want to talk with you about.
You bet. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me here.
A guy of this caliber knows all things about all subjects, so we could riff here for a couple of hours. But I wanted you to come in and talk about a couple of things. You're one of the brightest guys I know on, economic principles, economic issues and all of that. But even more fundamental than those things, which I want to talk with you about if we have time. Earlier this week, you and I had an opportunity to go and do kind of a guest sort of joint lecture, I guess it was, at my alma mater, Captain Shreve High School. We had the occasion to speak to the student leaders there, the student council officers and all the class officers and all the rest. Bright group of students, I thought. About a big, important, lofty concept, and that is American exceptionalism, right? So we sort of took it from different angles, but I thought we should talk about that a little bit because it's an important subject, and it has become a controversial one in the country in recent years, the very idea of American exceptionalism. But first of all, how do you describe that for people who are not familiar with the term?
So American exceptionalism, when we were at Captain Shreve, speaking to these young up-and-coming leaders, we spoke about American exceptionalism in business and in politics. And American exceptionalism is very simple. It is that we are excellent in many facets of both business and politics. And so, for example's sake, I believe that comes back to the Judeo-Christian worldview. Book of Colossians says, work as if before God and not before man. And so whether or not you are, a street sweeper, a ditch digger, or a cancer researcher, you are going to be the most excellent at it because of that. And that has intertwined our American fabric for really since the founding of America. And that's what American exceptionalism is.
It really is, as Ronald Reagan used to say, it's the belief at its essence that we are a special people in a special place set aside for a special purpose. And it's not just us beating our chest, oh, aren't we great? It really is, we believe, that it is something that was divinely orchestrated by our Creator, And we began, as we said to the students, we began with this premise, the Declaration of Independence, which is our nation's birth certificate, this very idea that we were founded almost upon a creed. That's what G.K. Chesterton said one time, the famous British philosopher. America is the only nation in the world founded upon a creed. What's the creed? Well, it's cited right in the Declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The point being that we really believe that, and we're the first nation in the world that was based upon this premise, that our rights derive from God and not the government. And because we're created in His image, we have these inalienable rights that He gives us, and we have a responsibility that goes along with those rights, the responsibility to work hard, make a better life, to sacrifice and play by the rules. And in many ways, that defines or has defined what is the American dream, that if you work hard, play by the rules, and sacrifice, you do well before your Creator, you can make a better life. And that's the premise of our free market principles in business and in politics. And I fear it's something that is being lost on the next generation, don't you?
There's no doubt. I was at Louisiana Tech today, and I referenced the comment of, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man a fish, he eats for a lifetime. And they kind of looked at me like they'd never heard that concept before. The concept of shared values that we had even 2 generations ago has just somewhat gone away. And I know American exceptionalism sounds odd in this Facebook and Instagram era, but it also comes with an obligation of humility. And so, like you said, we don't go out and just, beat our chest that we're so great, we're so great. It really goes back to, like, some of the things that Teddy Roosevelt said, walk softly but carry a big stick.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of that, we have the most powerful military force on the planet, and even though it's been downsized in the last 8 years of the Obama administration, we're still the greatest fighting force in the world. And as we said to the students, we reminded them, we're also the most benevolent. So we don't just fight better than everybody else, we give more than everyone else. And in terms of, if you look at, defending freedom around the globe, I mean, our country alone spends over half of the military expenditures that are expended throughout the world, on behalf of all these other nations doing all these things, because that's who we are as Americans. We defend freedom and we defend the rights of people everywhere, because we believe, as the Declaration cites, that these are rights that come from God and not from government. And when tyrants step in the place and take away the rights of the people, then the people are justified to stand up and appeal to their ultimate judge, and that's their Creator Himself. And that's a uniquely American ideal, and one that we've expressed around the world and done so with great might. And we don't mind doing that, because that's who we are as Americans.
And that's exactly what happened with the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
But you're absolutely right, because a whole generation, maybe 2 generations, just are ignorant to what that is. And so I'm going to do as much as I can do, and hopefully after Saturday's election, and please let me put a shameless plug in for my friend Mike. Please get out and vote. Whoever you vote for, please get out and vote, because we need to send good, principled people to Congress, and I believe that you are one of those, Mike.
Thank you, Ross, for saying that. We really do have a big opportunity in Washington right now to turn this thing around and get back to some of these critical principles. Ronald Reagan used to say, America is the last great hope of man on the earth. We're the shining city on a hill, and we can return to those values, and I think we're poised to do so. I think the American people are expecting that, and I think we have a very unique and rare opportunity to return to some of those core ideals and philosophies. We got about 1 minute before we go to break. I want you to stay over one more segment if you can, Ross, because I want to talk about some of the core economic philosophies. This is your area, your wheelhouse, you deal with all the time, to talk about what that means when we talk about conservative economic ideals and principles. We can riff about that a little bit, but that was a neat thing for the students at Captain Shreve we did it was Tuesday this week, and I left with great hope for the next generation, didn't you? I was encouraged.
No, absolutely, and I think that this generation, they've only seen George Bush and Barack Obama, and they are so affected by terrorism and YouTube. I mean, these things are really part and parcel of who these kids are. It'll be interesting to see what a Trump presidency will mean for them.
Yes, it will. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Ross Barrett, Mike Johnson on the C.L. Bryant Show.
Quoting the guy that came over in the Mayflower,
which was quoted in the Bible.
Okay, so in this next segment, since it's so brief and you're a community of 100, give them simple but powerful business reasons why you're supporting Mike and what Mike's going to do as Congress. Why does this matter? What does it mean to us?
We have 9 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's quick. It goes by fast.
It does.
okay.
All right, before that, though, let's talk about...
executive orders.
Oh, yeah, executive orders.
Executive orders, tax. I mean, I can say this. The contract with America ran for about 18 months. Now it's time to get back to work and really have Congress.
Hey, what do you think about the carrier thing? Because, Mike, that's a topic that's interesting to listeners.
Yes.
Explaining to them what is crony capitalism and how it's not that.
Well, and that's what I wanted to start with. what should be the overall goal of our economic policy? So right now, and for a long time, there's been an agenda for the rich and an agenda for the poor. What we need to do is work on an agenda for the working and middle class, because if we do that, the rest of it takes care of itself, because we broaden the pathway out of poverty for more people, and just kind of set the table with that, and then talk about more of the specifics of contract.
Well, so Mnuchin, the new Treasury Secretary,
Yeah.
I mean, he said the rich are not going to get an absolute tax cut. They will not.
Right.
They will phase out all the deductions.
Right.
And so it's targeted towards the vast middle class.
I think that's the right approach, and I mean, I think that's what's going to pay off in the end.
Yeah.
But, you know, that because ultimately it feeds the free market system, which makes economic mobility and opportunity readily available for more people, which is the key of the whole thing. It's mobility. It's giving to people the ability to rise.
And the belief and hope that they can.
That's good.
But should I tell you that CL just texted me a picture of him? He's at something called Fences. It's a movie in Washington, D.C. at the African American Museum, and guess who is behind him in the picture? Denzel Washington.
Really?
Yep.
Denzel knows nothing of CL's politics because he wouldn't be hanging out with me.
Well, they're not doing politics. They're both
Oh.
getting interviews.
Oh, good,
What's
good.
happening? I'm like, just give me some phone number. Take a picture. Yeah. Premier of Fences. So if you want to say that's where CL is, he's at the Premier of Fences in D.C. It's called Fences. I don't know anything about it, just Fences. Premier of Fences at the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., standing right next to Denzel Washington. Let our listeners freak out. And then we move on.
Why would they freak out?
Just because we don't.
Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. Mike Johnson, Representative Mike Johnson, filling in for CL this evening, and I have a special guest with me, Ross Barrett. We were just talking a bit about some big ideas, big principles. We just got a text and a photo from CL. He's currently in Washington. He's in D.C. at the premiere of Fences. It's a big new film there, and he's at the African American Museum. Behind him in the photograph is Denzel Washington. So he's having a great time. We're filling in on his behalf. And Ross, we were talking before the break about American exceptionalism and some of the things that make us uniquely American. And one of those things is our approach to economic policy. And what I find, and I've been out on the campaign trail running for Congress for 10 or 11 months, talking with people about limited government, smaller government, and financial stewardship, fiscal responsibility, and all that. And people say, what is the goal of our economic policy? Because I feel like we've drifted away from that in recent years. So in many ways, there's sort of been like, for a number of years now, there's been sort of this like agenda for the rich and an agenda for the poor. And I feel like the right approach is we ought to have one big overall goal of our economic policy, and it ought to be what's best for middle and working class Americans. Because I think if we can get that right, then we can widen the pathway out of poverty for more people, and also, you sort of take care of those on both ends because the free market kicks in. And that's what makes economic mobility and opportunity readily available for more people. To me, that's the key. What's your take on that?
No, I think that's part of it. I think you have to address the stagnant wages of the middle class over the last 8 years. Some might even say 12 years. Mm-hmm. It's just simply not going up enough, and we've had periods of low inflation. We're about to go into a period of higher inflation, which means wages need to go up, taxes need to go down.
Right.
So how do you do that? Trump is somewhat of a question mark in how exactly he's going to handle his economic policy. But if you look closely at who his Treasury Secretary is, who his Commerce Secretary is, they've made it very clear that the rich are not going to get tax cuts. I mean, Secretary designee Mnuchin is his name, made it clear. He said the wealthy will not get an absolute tax cut. They will be phased out, and this is going to be targeted towards the vast middle class. And I think that's the right thing to do. In addition to that, the middle class needs to have hope that tomorrow is better can be better than today.
Right, and providing for the economic mobility means that somebody, like, as we said earlier, if they work hard, they play by the rules, they're willing to sacrifice, they ought to be able to climb the rung, so to speak, the economic ladder, and make a better life for themselves and their children. The problem is, over the last 8 years in particular, many people have felt that American dream is being pulled further beyond the grasp of their children and grandchildren, and that's why I think we get an opportunity now to hit the reset button, and we need to have tax cuts for everybody, not just for the rich or just for the lower class. But it needs to be across the board, I think. Now, you mentioned President-elect Trump, and his initial appointments have excited a lot of people. I think it's very exciting to see the way he's handled things thus far. Just today, there was an announcement about, well, two things. First was about Air Force One. Did you see that?
I did see that.
So President Trump decides this morning in a tweet that the Boeing, there was a contract, if you haven't seen this, for a new Air Force One. And it was supposed to be a $3 billion endeavor. It's turned into about $4 billion, and Trump just said, nah, never mind, cancel the order. So the people at Boeing, I'm sure their heads were spinning. But a great gesture, of course. It's exactly the kind of stuff we need, common sense. Who needs a $4 billion airplane, even if it's Air Force One? And then there was this other announcement that's intriguing about the nation of Japan. Did you see that about their investment and that they were going to invest in the U.S. again? So maybe it's a psychological effect. I don't know. Maybe it's Trump's policies kicking in already. What do you think?
Well, no, I think that he has a very unique way of going about things, needless to say. May be wrong, but never in doubt. But that gives a confidence that he really is bringing common sense measures to what many feel is just a government that is getting so large and bloated that we've just lost our way. You know, frankly, the American people have spoken. However, the American people also allowed some of this drift, I would say. We kept relying on government and allowed the reliance upon government since the 1960s. So where was the church during that matter?
Right.
We have hit a reset button, and I think now is one of the most exciting times to be an American, quite frankly. The next 8 years are going to be really, really exciting, starting with when the executive orders are going to get overturned, many of which, as you know, as a constitutional lawyer, much better than I do, are unconstitutional to begin with. I
wish we'd had the resources to challenge all of the Obama executive orders, because about 90% of them were overreach, but we didn't. But I have been encouraged. President-elect Trump says that he's going to dial many of those back. And among the first priorities is this idea that he says no new regulations on business and industry will be allowed unless two existing regulations are repealed at the same time. I mean, that alone would be a game changer for business owners and entrepreneurs and job creators, right?
Well, you mentioned I had worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for a great man, conservative Democrat named J. Bennett Johnston. And we worked on a bill that was called cost-benefit analysis, and you had to do a cost-benefit analysis before you issued out a regulation.
Right.
And unfortunately, it never passed as statutory law. At any rate, I think that the makeup in the Congress now, with gentlemen like Senator Cassidy, who's in there, we have the team ready to go. And it'll be really interesting to see how Congress acts. Congress is critically important in this. The executive branch can only do so much. Congress is the one that proposes passes the budget. They have the power of the purse, and they need to start acting like a co-equal branch of government, and they haven't for the last 12 or 16 years.
Well, yeah, and speaking of the Constitution, the law is supposed to be made by the legislative branch. Isn't that what they taught us in physics, in civics? And for so long now, the executive branch has effectively been making law with these executive orders and doing it what is effectively an end run around the Constitution. So if we get the three branches of government back within their proper and intended scope, we're going to go a long way in limiting some of those abuses. And the other thing is, really, the fourth branch of government they didn't teach us about in civics now is the bureaucracy, and that's where we've gotten all these new regulations, and they've just come out endlessly, and it's these nameless, faceless bureaucrats that are imposing new regulatory schemes on every business and industry under the sun. I think, my friend, that's about to come to an end, and that's an exciting thing for the country and for the economy at large, and everything that's before us.
Well, it goes back to Congress acting like Congress again. Senator Stevens from Alaska one time defunded the Department of Agriculture, a specific department, because they issued a regulation that he felt was wrong.
Right.
So I think it's just, this concept of a reset is really exciting. And with a strong Congress, with new leadership in Congress, I'm really excited to see how that's going to apply to economic policy.
Well, I hope to be a part of that, and I'm grateful for your time this evening coming in. You have a wealth of knowledge, as always. Ross Barrett, venture capitalist, outgoing president of the Committee 100, and a great voice of reason on all these things. I'm Mike Johnson, filling in for the C.L. Bryant Show. Come back with us after the break. Much more to come. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. Remember to get out and vote on Saturday.
There you go.
So long, it's not true. Wanted a woman
It is confusing these days, isn't it? Mike Johnson in for C.L. Bryant, who is in Washington right now, and we're having a great time filling in on the program today. And I have another all-star guest lined up for you just now, and I believe we have him on the phone. Jeremy Alford is the publisher and editor of LAPolitics.com, which many people read, and LA Politics Weekly. And he is a popular speaker around the country. He does radio and television news programs from CNN, Fox News. He runs the gamut. He's regularly published in newspapers around the country, and he has an opinion column that's syndicated in news, appears in 34 newspapers and magazines throughout our state. He's really become, I think, he might be arguably the foremost voice on Louisiana politics now, at least for my generation. And Jeremy, thanks for being with us tonight. We got big news from you today, don't we?
We do, but I want to talk about you first.
Oh, dear.
You're a state representative. You're practicing constitutional law. You're running for Congress. Now they're letting you guest host a radio program. I just hope you do something with your life one day. You need to.
I don't have a very marketable set of skills, but it's fun to come into the radio studio. Listen, you're on the largest talk radio program in our part of the state, and this show is broadcast everywhere. And I wanted you to come on tonight and talk about your new book, because you guys are now you're on a book tour, right? That just kicked off.
Yeah.
Tell us about the book, because it's a widely anticipated publication. Everybody wants to read it, and I wanted you to come on and just give us a firsthand account.
Well, I'm in Hammond right now. We just wrapped up a book signing, and the new book is called Long Shot, and it's the story of last year's governor's race and the election cycle, as told from the campaign trail, behind the closed doors, what the people really said, and we are going to be in Shreveport 1 week from tonight on the 13th, 6 p.m. At the Barnes & Noble, signing books, and we'd love to visit with everyone and talk about this race. But, it was last year's race for governor was not only the most expensive race ever waged for governor on Louisiana soil, but it just had this unforgettable cast of characters where you had a kind of a surprise upset ending. There was something very uniquely American about this election, where you had a true underdog facing off against a man who had already really, to some extent, survived the depths of controversy by kind of talking about it in the open and facing it head on. And it resulted in this just really unpredictable race where it was really defined by the self-determination of two men who were really just obsessed with the idea of claiming Louisiana's top political pride. And, there's a lot of shades of this Trump election in last year's governor's election that I think a lot of people missed. I think you had, in the book, David Vitter's staff talks a lot about how they had to deal with the media and how the media had these kind of preconceived notions of stories that they were going to write. And then there's nothing that they could do to shake them off of those stories. And you also had a long shot, which I guess, Donald Trump was kind of the longest shot when John Bilders last year was the long shot, where he was repeatedly told by his own party's leadership that he shouldn't be in this race. But, at the end of the day, I think folks will read this book and they'll be surprised by how much this race was defined by opposition research. For folks out there who don't know what this is, these are people who get paid to do nothing but kind of dig up dirt, try to get people on video to make them maybe look silly and put it on the internet, on TV. And, opposition research is really starting to define modern elections today. And it's not necessarily the best thing, but what's really fun about this book is that we take you on the trail, on the campaign trail of a modern Louisiana election. We take you from the induction ceremony at the Political Hall of Fame, and yes, Louisiana does have a Political Hall of Fame.
Oh, yes.
To the D.C. Mardi Gras celebration, where the entire kind of political class relocates to Washington, D.C. to celebrate Mardi Gras. Behind the doors of the debate, in the bar rooms, in the courtrooms, we take you everywhere. And there's some great anecdotes in this book about Edwin Edwards and Huey Long that have never been published before, never seen the light of day. And we have some great sources in the book, including yourself, Mike Johnson.
Well, listen, and we're talking to Jeremy Alford. He's Politico in Louisiana and co-author of Long Shot. Your co-author is Tyler Bridges, and another well-known journalist and who worked really hard on the book. I know you guys tried to approach it as, I guess, in many ways as journalists, kind of from an objective standpoint. It's going to be an interesting read for me. I haven't read the book yet, but obviously I don't come at it objectively. You know who I was for in the I was a big David Vitter supporter, and
Right.
I'm sure that's documented well there. But you know, I've known both men for almost 20 years. I went to law school with the governor, John Bell Edwards, and I. He graduated a year behind me in law school, and I've known David Vitter for an equal amount of time. And you know, I was for the horse that didn't win. So I'll read it with a certain perspective, and others will read it with another. But that's kind of the beauty of it. Was it hard to maintain that kind of objective viewpoint as you were talking to all the various players in the thing?
No, and it wasn't for me. You know, my business model is based on being in a middle swim lane. I like to jokingly tell people I don't cover real news. You know, my job is to cover Louisiana politics.
Right.
And sometimes you can't get more trivial than that. But I think that, you know, that we split up certain parts of the book. You know, Tyler Bridges had a lot of the John Bell Edwards side, and I had a lot of the David Vitter side, and then kind of super PACs and everybody else that was in the race. But now I think I accomplished two important things with David Vitter's story. Is one, I think I was able to kind of paint a portrait of a man who was anti-establishment before it was cool.
That's right.
Anti-establishment. And I also, you know, was able to look into his background and show that even at a young age, he was kind of starting to step out on his own from his family and start to make his own decisions. And you really start to see more of a complete portrait of who arguably is one of maybe the most misunderstood men in Louisiana politics, maybe one of the most skilled tacticians we've seen in modern history. But at the same time, you know, we spent some time on the 2007 scandal, and I think it shows a different side of that, in that we know, you know, we know that there's a serious sin, and that David Vitter took responsibility for that. But I think what people don't see is what kind of effect that media coverage has on a family.
Yes, it does.
These were, at the end of the day, real human beings, and you know, you had reporters staked out at their church, at their home, and
it was crazy.
And we talk a little bit about
it was crazy.
Yeah,
Listen, can you hang on with me for one more segment, because I've got some important questions to ask you about this. Jeremy Alford with us from LA Politics, author of the new book, Long Shot, and we'll be right back on the C.L. Bryant Show. Hang on, Jeremy, 1 second.
Sure.
Right back on the CL Bryant Show, Representative Mike Johnson filling in for CL, who's in Washington. And I have Jeremy Alford on the phone with us, a distinguished guest, because he's one of the foremost experts in Louisiana politics these days. He's the editor of LA Politics and the co-author of the new book, Long Shot, which has just been released, and they're on a book tour around the state, if you missed us in the last segment. Jeremy, you were talking a little bit about the dynamics of the two candidates for governor in last year's infamous race, and your approach to the book and all that. I'm just curious. I haven't. My disclaimer is I haven't read the book yet. I'm looking forward to getting a copy like everybody else, and to see how it's approached, because it really is a fascinating story, and I know a lot of people are anxious to read about it and to read your insights. But when you were doing the research on the book and interviewing all the players and all the behind the scenes folks, was there anything that just sticks out in your mind that you just thought was really surprising, something that you had not expected to learn as you were doing the research for the book?
I mean, it's filled with these really just classic anecdotes from Louisiana politics that are maybe difficult to get into on what is probably considered family radio. But I guess one thing that did stick out to me, though, is that we had enough time to write an epilogue. In that, this is a story about an election cycle. It's about a race, and there was a winner. We all know now that John Bel Edwards was the winner of that race. But the epilogue gave us an opportunity to talk a little bit about what happened from the time he won until, maybe early summer. And I was struck by just how much how much the tide shifted for John Bel Edwards. He went from being a guy who was the underdog, and so many things just happened to go right for John Bel Edwards in that race, and the book details what those things are. But as soon as he showed up at the Capitol, even just moments before he was sworn in, he was dealt a major defeat. When the House Republicans, you were a part of this, elected its own independent leadership for the first time in modern history, and I would argue to say that even today, right now in December, I would venture to say right now that was the most important political story of the entire year.
Well, I agree. I mean,
of Teller Barra.
I helped orchestrate it, and one day there's going to be a book written about just that, because it really was a big deal and set the tone for the whole the whole year, and I suppose, as you're saying, the whole administration.
Yeah, but and it just went downhill from there. The governor ended up proposing one of the most aggressive tax packages we've seen in recent history, after saying on the campaign trail that he had no intentions to raise taxes. And he left himself a little bit of wiggle room, but he ended up having to explain himself. And, one session after another, the governor didn't get exactly what he wanted. And, that first special session, boy, I mean, you were there. I think we've read Greek tragedies that had better endings than that special session. You had a President of the Senate, in tears on the last day. So, and then you see the governor kind of getting into this controversy with appointing trial lawyers who were his friends, and all that's covered in the epilogue. And it really was for a campaign that talked a lot about change and bringing a fresh approach. I think at the end of the day, there's just a lot of similarities from one governor to another, and we saw a little bit of that with Governor Edwards.
We did indeed, and it is a fascinating story, and it's interesting to have the book come out now. I mean, typically a book like this would be written, after an administration or after the person who's the subject of the book is leaving office. So it's fascinating to me that you guys are able to put this together so quickly, get it to market, and get it out there, because it will be part of the dialogue. It's almost as if you're releasing it in real time as all of these things are playing out. The next session of the legislature begins in the spring, and it will be another epic event, because they're projecting more budget shortfalls and all the rest, and so the drama will ensue once again. But you've been around the Capitol a long time, and you've been writing on Louisiana politics. People ask me often, Jeremy, about this year. It was the longest session in Louisiana history. And they asked me about the dynamics and how it felt to be there and in the middle of it. And I just sometimes jokingly summarize it by saying I was 4 inches taller when I got elected to the legislature. I mean, they just beat us down mercilessly, and it was hard on everyone. But I mean, how would you describe the first year of the Edwards administration? I mean, I know you've given a glimpse there by what you said, but politicos say this was the toughest they've ever seen it in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, and I will say this, that, you got to remember that the book is not necessarily about John Bell Edwards as much as it is about that election.
Right,
And we've seen this trend with Politico and some newspapers where they write these end-of-election books. Theodore White did it with the making of the president every election cycle, but we have a rich history of doing this in Louisiana, and it's been lost. You know, John McGinnis did these great books on singular elections.
Right.
We saw some great books about a couple of Earl Long elections told from the campaign trail, and Longshot really follows in that tradition. But this year for John Bell Edwards, I mean, like you said, it was the longest number of consecutive days ever served by any legislature since 1812. That bled right into the police-involved shootings. That bled into the floods, which were really earlier in the year too, into the Senate election. And let's not forget that 3 years ago right now was the first Mary Landrieu commercial, and that took us into the 14th Senate election, which took us to the 15th governor's election, and now in the Senate election. But this was an incredibly tough year. You know, I feel like I've been put through the ringer. I can only imagine with the hours that lawmakers are putting in and lobbyists as well. But I think everybody's just ready for a breather, and I think everybody's looking to next year and wondering, what's the legislature going to get done in the regular session? Will they have enough time? Is there going to have to be a special session? These are strange times, and there was just a sea shift in the legislative landscape, especially on the House side. And I think that's where I'm going to be watching closely next year to see what the House does, especially the House leadership, to see if they find some new ways to kind of work with the Senate and work with the administration, or if there's going to be more of a principled stance on things like cutting the budget versus raising taxes, which is the theme that we heard throughout this year.
Boy, I hope they stick to their guns on that one. Listen, we just got less than a minute left. Tell us again, you're going to do a book signing in Shreveport. I know you're on a statewide tour, but you'll be up here December 13th. Is that right?
Right, 6 p.m. at the Barnes & Noble, one week from tonight. But you can go right now to LouisianaLongshot.com, LouisianaLongshot.com. And if you go soon, we'll definitely get you an autographed copy, and you'll definitely get a first edition of the book. But you can have it shipped right to you, LouisianaLongshot.com. We're doing everything in Louisiana. The shipping's in Louisiana. The labor's in Louisiana. So if you want to support a Louisiana business, go to LouisianaLongshot.com. You can buy the book directly there.
That's awesome.
Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you at Barnes & Noble.
All right, buddy. Jeremy Alford, thanks for being with us. We'll be right back on the C.L. Bryant Show. Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. Mike Johnson filling in for CL, who's on the road tonight in Washington, D.C. And I have on the phone, in our long string of distinguished guests tonight, someone who you are really going to be interested in hearing from. This is our friend Kathleen Burden. She's a Republican National Committee woman from the state of Michigan. Now, Michigan is at the top of the news today because that is the sort of ground zero in the recount effort in the historic presidential election that we've just come through. And we asked Kathleen to come on with us tonight and just sort of give us the latest from the ground there, because there's been developments as late as just a few hours ago in this great story, great saga that's playing out there in Michigan. Kathleen, can you hear us?
Yes, good evening, I guess, to everyone. It's nice to talk with you.
Yes, ma'am. I love your accent. It's good for us in Louisiana to hear that. Listen, you are there on the ground, sort of watching all this play out. What's the latest developments on this? Now, we know Jill Stein is the Green Party candidate. She's the one that requested the recount. But
Right.
her very request is the subject of some controversy now, isn't it?
It really is. Just a couple days ago, a federal judge issued a written opinion saying that the Michigan clerk must immediately start this really kind of a wasteful recount. So our Attorney General in the state of Michigan and our Michigan Republican Party today had appellate court hearing to hear the arguments today on maybe hoping to cease the recount immediately. So that was all ongoing. But then just a short while ago, the appellate court upheld the federal recount order. So everything is still ongoing. It seems like it's in flux all the time. But there's like 1,800 volunteers, and we're growing every day to help keep an eye on this because all the counties are there to have to be recounted. And it's quite a process. It seems just such a waste of money that could have went to so many different other areas, besides the taxpayers having to pay for this.
Well, absolutely, and that is the late-breaking development. We were just reading that before you came on. The Court of Appeals has ruled that the recount must go on. The Attorney General there is a Republican, correct? State Attorney General?
Yes, he is. Mm-hmm. Yes, Bill Schuette.
Yes, and he and General Schuette teamed up with President-elect Donald Trump's legal team, and they were arguing that because Jill Stein is not even really aggrieved by the election results, I mean, she wasn't even close to being a top finisher, she didn't even have sufficient legal standing to request the recount at all. Now, I thought that was a really good legal argument. But
yes, here in Michigan, she would need like 2 million votes to flip.
Which is a joke,
win.
Of course.
And she's just like 1%.
Yeah.
1% vote.
So
it's very sad, and it's a lot of work, a lot of effort on so many people's behalf, and we're really under a time restraint, too, when this is supposed to be done. It's like, since the onset of this, 8 days to count over 5 million votes in all these different counties. It's just overwhelming in a way.
Well, and what is the projected cost of that? You were talking about how it's just an exorbitant amount of money. I'd heard estimates of $4 or $5 million. It may be more than that, right?
I've heard 5 or more million. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And you just think what that could go to for, like say the Flint water crisis, or to our poor, or to schools, or to our roads. I mean, so many different ways that the money could have been utilized instead of putting people under this deadline. And another thing is that this was put into the court system so late in the game. It's almost like they want us to try and fail, not to get these counts done in its time, to be submitted. So, but people are working on it. Our Republican Party has done a wonderful job getting volunteers. Our state party chairwoman has been wonderful. We're all putting out different sites that they could go and sign up as volunteers, and then told where to go, what time, and it's just an ongoing process right now.
Well, and hats off to you all in the state Republican Party in Michigan, because I know you worked really hard to secure that victory for our party in the presidential election, and it's the first time that's happened in quite some time, isn't it?
Oh, yes, since I think 1988.
Wow, how about that?
Our state has went red. We're very proud of it, very excited about it. But this does take a little bit of the joy out of it, because who would think someone would come up with this cockamamie idea?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's got to be a little disheartening to get to the end of that effort, have expended so many manpower hours and energy and sweat, there on the ground, and then find out it's not over yet. You got to go back and continue to fight. to sort of re-secure the victory that you achieved there. So listen,
yes, and it's not going to change anything. It's just going to be costly and rather unnecessary. But we'll have to go through with it and do the best we can.
That's exactly right. Now, we also heard there was something on the newswire I saw today. I didn't read it in detail, but something about controversy that's related in Detroit that as many as half of the ballots cast in Detroit may not even be eligible for the recount. Do you know anything about the details of that?
I can't give you any update more than what you just referred to.
Well, it was obviously an intriguing headline there. We're always watching Detroit very cautiously. Right. I don't know what that's about, but we'll have to look into it further. But it just looks like just an exercise in futility and an utter waste of time and money and energy, as you said. But listen, we are grateful that you all are there and on the ground and watching it very closely. I mean, it won't overturn the election results, of course, but all of this has great meaning and symbolism, I think, for the rule of law and for the integrity of our election system. And at the end of the day, we rely upon that. It's part of who we are as Americans. We've got to have integrity in our system, or else the system sort of breaks down. And I know that you all have done a great job. How long have you been serving as a National Committee woman?
Oh, a little over a year. I was just reelected for a 4-year term, so just starting into that. So I was filling out at the end term of our state park chairman, who was elected to that post. So someone had to fill the post, so I was one of the ones to apply for that, and we had a race for that. And so now I'm into my first 4-year term as well. So it's over a year now, and it's been wonderful. We have great people in Michigan. We have a great political family. We really do. I'm proud of so many people, and it shows the efforts that are going forth now to do our best, to try and meet this obligation that's been put upon us. It just seems so wrong, though.
It does seem wrong. And I know when you signed on to do this, you had no idea it was going to become a full-time job. I'm grateful you're doing it. Kathleen Burden, keep up the good work in Michigan. We're all counting on you. We'll be back after the break with the C.L. Bryant Show. Mike Johnson filling in.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. Representative Mike Johnson filling in for C.L., who's on the road, and always happy to do this. It's a great pleasure and honor to come in here and talk about the issues and talk to important guests. And we've had quite a lineup tonight on the program. Glad to bring that to you, and really glad to bring you the next guest, and that is one of my dear friends, Laura Seabaugh. She is the wife of State Representative Alan Seabaugh, who used to be my seatmate in the Louisiana House. But she is, in her own right, a star. I think she's one of the most talented people I know, Michelle. She is the executive director of the American Rose Society right here in Shreveport, Louisiana. And so I wanted Laura to come on and tell us about Christmas in Roseland and all things roses, because that's a big deal for our area. So, Laura, thanks for coming on this evening.
You're welcome, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, well, so it's an exciting thing that, Christmas in Roseland is sort of a tradition around here. How many years has that been going on? Do you know?
This is actually the 33rd year for us to host Christmas in Roseland when we're a part of the Holiday Trail of Light.
That's awesome. I mean, it is for many families in the area. It's kind of a annual tradition. It has been for our family for as long back as I can remember, and we bring all the kids and all their cousins come. We all walk around and do the thing. This year is going to be as big as ever, right? Lots of anticipation about it.
Exactly, and we're so thrilled about it. Last year we won the Pride Award from the Shreveport-Bossier Convention and Tourism Bureau, and we were the Outstanding Event of the Year. I didn't know if you knew that.
I did not know that, but I'm not surprised since you were at the helm. So, so what's on tap for this year?
Well, we're building and growing all the time. We just finished our Roseland Christmas Market, which is a ton of fun, and Christmas shopping. One exciting new thing that we have coming up is we are having a Princess and Rock Crawler Night. Now, you have boys. Do you know what a rock crawler is?
I don't, but fill me in. I don't know. What am I missing?
I'm learning because, Mike, I just have all girls. And so rock crawlers are these vehicles that crawl over rocks.
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay,
yes.
You know? Okay,
yes.
Well, we're going to have rock crawlers here. This organization called Kryptonite Customs is bringing rock crawlers for the boys to see, and at the same time, Bella Princesses is bringing princesses. So during Christmas in Roseland, during funnel cakes, and Santa's going to be here, and we have the lights, and we have the Christmas cards for the community, and we're going to have rock crawlers and princesses.
Oh, I
so
mean, it doesn't get any better than that. This is like like Disney World comes to Shreveport. I mean, come on, who could
exactly.
not come see all this? All right, and so is it weekends, weeknights? What's the times and all of that?
Right. Well, right now we're open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night from 5:30 until 9:30. The week right before Christmas, the Monday through Thursday, we'll be opening during the week because the kids will be out of school, and it'll be a great time to come on over and get that picture with Santa and just kind of get the family in the mood for the holidays.
Well, and what we like about it is it's a fun all-family event. It's very low cost, right? I mean, this is something everybody can do and enjoy with their kids and their grandkids and just have a good time,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and, Mike, it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, first of all, the Shreveport Rose Society is here. Our national headquarters is in Shreveport, and so we have this wonderful garden. So we are thrilled that we can provide Northwest Louisiana with this great opportunity because not only do we affect the economy, through the 18 employees that we have, but we also have an event that promotes tourism and visitors into our city during Christmas.
Well, that's exactly right. And we were talking about that off the air before you came on about really the economic impact and the image that this provides for our area, for Shreveport and Bossier, the surrounding area. To have the American Rose Society headquartered here is really a big deal. I mean, people don't realize what a large community of people around the country are rose enthusiasts, I guess. They're
right.
really into all this. And a lot of them come in from out of town, and, they get involved in our area because of that common interest they have. So it's a neat thing for us.
Interesting facts here, okay? The American Rose Society will be 125 years this year.
Wow.
The rose is our national floral emblem. Did you know that, Mike?
I did not. No, yes, of course I knew that. What? They're looking at me.
And it was U.S. congressmen and senators from Louisiana who made this happen. It was actually the wife of J. Bennett Johnston who made this happen.
Really?
And it was their work, and it was 30 years ago this past month in November, and Ronald Reagan is the one who signed the proclamation making the rose our national floral emblem.
That is
and it was the work
perfect.
of the American Rose Society. Yes.
There you go. And you've been at the helm now how long? I know time flies, but
A little over 2 years.
2 years.
A little over
Wow.
2 years. Absolutely.
and-
I know. And this is, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, by all accounts, you're doing an amazing job with that. Everybody talks about it. I mean, I know that, it had a long history and legacy when you took over, but everyone says you're doing a great job with that, Laura, and hats off, because it does mean a lot for our area.
Well, we're having a lot of fun. And, and an important thing, too, is this is a big fundraiser for our garden. This is how we make money. This is what our garden crew does during the winter months when the garden doesn't need as much tending. We have Christmas in Roseland, and we raise some money to pay our garden staff, and we have a lot of fun.
That's good. Now, what is the cost for? Is it the cost per vehicle? Is that the way they do it, or is it a gate charge?
It is, and it's kind of confusing because we charge per car, but we really want to make this family oriented. So we charge per car because some people, you can have 5 in your family, or you can have 6 in your family. It doesn't matter. One car is $20.
Okay.
Or $5 a person, whichever is the least. And then it's a walkthrough. So even though you pay by the car, once you get here, you get out and you come. We have a miniature train for the little kids to ride on. Santa's here. We have lights. Yes.
Great stuff. We're looking forward to it. Hey, what's the website? Is there a website to go? Very quickly. I got 10 seconds here.
Yes. ChristmasInRoseland.com. And we have a Facebook page, which is sometimes easier. Facebook,
Awesome. Laura Seabaugh, you're awesome. Keep up the great work. We'll see everybody out at Christmas in Roseland. All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Stay with us. Born in the USA. Mike Johnson filling in for C.L. Bryant, who is in Washington, D.C., doing important things as he's apt to do. And we are grateful to be here. Have had a great show this evening. Have a caller on the line. Wanted to get to that very quickly. Kenny, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thanks for calling in. What's your question?
Well, I won't be voting for you Saturday, but one of the issues you may be confronted with when you get to Congress may be this electoral college.
Yes, sir.
And I don't believe we need to do away with it, but maybe we can modify it to where you use instead of winner takes all, you have the popular vote of the state go with 2 votes for the senators, then you allow each congressional district popular vote to stand by itself. Louisiana would have like had 7 and 1 instead of 8.
That's an interesting idea. You know, it will be a subject of discussion, as it always is when the popular vote and the electoral college results don't line up. But you know, I'm one of these. I agree with you, Kenny. We can't risk getting rid of the electoral college. I think the founders were brilliant in the way they designed that, and it was the subject of great debate and discussion, of course. And they wanted to prevent the tyranny of the majority. You know, sometimes when I'm speaking to large groups, I say, you all understand America is not a democracy, right? And when I say that, some groups they look at us, sort of puzzled. And I say democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner, right? We're in a constitutional republic. And we have certain rules that we abide by, and that's what maintains the rule of law and our whole system of justice and our electoral system. So it's important. Maybe it does need a little tweaking. I don't know. We would do that tread very cautiously, I think, in that arena because it's served us very well, even though the outcome doesn't always line up with what everybody thinks. But you're right. Kenny's right. The Electoral College is going to be the subject of a lot of debate going forward.
We did a lot of calls tonight. We just couldn't put them on because you had guests, and they're all supporters of yours saying they voted for you in the primary, and they're getting out on Saturday to vote. People are trying to say it's going to be low voter turnout. I don't think so. The volume of phone calls that we're getting in here, people are on fire on Saturday. But, we're going to get you on the air to commit to something.
Okay, what's that?
After you win on Saturday, that you're going to come back and still do this show, kind of like the fireside chat that Roosevelt used to do during World War II. You'll be in the district, and you'll come in, give CL a night off, and just talk to your constituents. What do you think about that?
I would love to do that. You're jinxing me right now. But if
it happens.
If we are so blessed to...
Even if it doesn't, you're still going to come back.
I'm still going to come back.
I get you anyway.
You always have me.
People get famous. They forget their friends. Everybody like, CL, who?
There's no risk of that here. But if we are so blessed to be able to go and serve the 4th Congressional District, that would be my great pleasure to come and fill in for CL when he's out, because he's as busy as a congressman these days. He's all over the country. He's in great demand. We love that about him. He's an important voice in America right now, and I'm grateful that he's been given that platform. But sure, this is the home team in the hometown, and I'll always come in the studio here. They do a great job here at the studios, and great staff, and it's a pleasure to be here. Great guests come in. The show is grown in its scope, and it's heard as far away as North Carolina now, and really all over the world, as we've said.
On the free app. Now, we have an app that you need to download. He has his lovely assistant, who I won't name on the air, but download the free CL Bryant Show app, and you can listen to us in D.C. You'll be able to catch the show every night, get caught up on things.
Be in tune with the hometown, even in Washington. I love it. Well, it has been a great pleasure to be here, and I mentioned at the outset of the show, and I wanted to say before we get near the end here, we had an outpouring of support today from friends all over the community about my father, who is struggling with end stages of cancer, and he's listening tonight. I left his side to come to the studio. He wanted me to do that, and I just wanted to say how grateful I am for him. A lot of people know my dad, Patrick Johnson. In 1984, September 17th in 1984, he was one of the firefighters in the tragic Dixie Cold Storage fire. We lost a great fire captain in that fire, Captain Percy Johnson, and my dad was an assistant chief training officer of the Shreveport Fire Department, and he got burned 80% of his body, third-degree burns in that tragic fire, was given a 5% chance to live. And, he survived it. He's a survivor, and he's survived lots of obstacles since that time, been in pain, every day since 1984. And he is he's just a great man, hero to me, and he's fighting now, and a lot of people are praying for him, and I just wanted to say on the air, we're grateful for that. It means a lot to us. And and I don't know what else
I
to
just
say.
am so grateful that you shared that personal story, and I'm so moved that you came in here from his side. And I think people need to realize the kind of statesman you are. You put forth a piece of legislation back in session a few months ago that became a law recently that had to do with that tragedy in 1984. Now, it doesn't affect your father, but it was the family that you saw. It was the captain's family.
Yeah, we Amendment 4 just passed on the ballot in November 8th, and we were grateful for that. It was an amendment that says that surviving spouses and the families of firefighters, military personnel, law enforcement, folks who die in the line of duty, their surviving spouse doesn't have to pay property taxes on the family home any longer. They get an exemption. And it passed overwhelmingly, landslide at the ballot. And I was certainly grateful for that because it was brought about because of those experiences. When Percy Johnson died in that fire in 1984, he left behind a family. They struggled. And this is the least we can do for those first responders and our heroes in our community. So thanks for mentioning that, Michelle. We'll be back for the close of the C.L. Bryant Show. Hope you'll be with us. It's been my pleasure. Mike Johnson filling in for C.L. We'll see you in just a moment. Thanks for being with us on the C.L. Bryant Show. Mike Johnson filling in. We were talking before the last break about my father, and I just want to pay tribute to him here at the end of the show because he's listening tonight, and he's struggling with end stages of cancer, and many of you are praying for him, and we're grateful for that. But I wanted to read you just 2 paragraphs out of a book that was written about his story back in the 80s, Up from the Ashes. It's out of Chapter 8. He spent a lot of time in the LSU burn unit because he was burned 80% of his body, third-degree burns. But let me read you this because it says a lot. For Dan Herndon, RN, in the LSUS burn unit, September 17th, 1984 was a day for celebrating his birth, but he describes that day in 1984 as follows. Quote, "It was Pat Johnson's day of reckoning, the first day of many days, weeks, months of pain, fear, family struggle, and battles against all odds. Pat had a 5% chance of defeating death according to the books." Unquote. Technically speaking, Dan refers to Pat's mortality index as 95%, which means overcoming the odds were very slight indeed. One important factor, though, that Dan credits, not for its scientific merits, but nevertheless evident, is, quote, "the spirit of the man," unquote. He said, "One cannot measure it, the spirit of the man, with instruments or administer it with syringes. It lacks any clinical credibility in assessing one's injuries. It is not concrete. It is not taken as evidence in survivability. Yet it remains the essence of life itself. It is inner strength, soul strength, accumulated and stored long before its true test arrives. September 17th, 1984 began Pat's true test," unquote. He goes on to say that firemen are a rare breed. They have a very special way of dealing with the gnawing fear of fire that's inherent in every human being, and they stick together like family. They have a special partner who backs them up, and they never face danger alone. My dad lost his partner in that fire that day, Percy Johnson, who died one room down from him while he battled for his own life. And that's something that my dad has dealt with every day since then. So, at the end of CL's show every night, he ends with this song, which is sort of an homage to our heroes, our first responders, those who put their lives on the line every day for the rest of us. And we do owe them a great debt of gratitude. And if you've not thought about that lately, you probably should. Those who serve in our military, our armed forces, Louisiana National Guard, every branch of law enforcement and our fire protection officers, EMS, everybody who goes out there every day to make the community safe and secure for the rest of us, they deserve our great gratitude and our appreciation. And so especially during the holidays and especially right now with what our family is going through, it just hits very close to home to us to have been through this. So for the C.L. Bryant Show, for all the folks here in the studio, and for C.L. himself who's in D.C., thanks for being with us. This is Mike Johnson. Have a great holiday. We'll see you soon.
You sacrificed to keep freedom alive, and to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side, and the bond will never be torn. For those who wear the uniform,